Ascendai, The Destiny Crest. Audiobook by Robinson and Walsh. Chapter 3, Danger on the Mountain. "Man, this place sucks," 17-year-old Stan Vanderhaven said with annoyance from where he lounged on the couch in the penthouse apartment. He and his 20-year-old brother George had come to the Black Diamond Resort with 3 of their best friends for Christmas vacation. The 2 brothers were the only children of billionaire businessman Montgomery Vanderhaven and were very spoiled and used to getting anything they wanted. "Hey guys, come on, let's do something," Stan said. Ray, Tyler, and Vince, his friends, didn't even glance away from the video game they were playing on the large screen TV in front of them. "Freeloaders," Stan muttered angrily as he looked around the spacious room for his brother. George was standing in front of the large bank of windows that covered one whole wall of the apartment and looked out over the resort and ski slopes below. "Hey, George," Stan called out. "George, what are you doing?" He called again when his brother didn't answer. When his brother still didn't answer, he stalked over to him and said angrily, "George, come on. Let's go someplace else. All this place has is stupid families with little kids. There's nothing to do." "Shut up and quit your whining," George said, punching his brother on the arm. "I've got an idea." "What?" Stan said irritably. "I'm so sick of snowboarding on these tame trails with the ski patrol up our butts all the time. I think we should get Harvey up here to fly us onto the top of that." George pointed at the mountain rising up into the clouds right out the window. "It's prohibited, which means there's probably some sick terrain up there, and better yet, no ski patrol." "What makes you think Harvey will come up here?" Stan asked. "You know how he hates the cold." George snorted derisively. "Harvey will fly anywhere for the right price." "True," Stan said. "He'll kick, fuss, and complain, then ask for more money. It's the same routine every time." "Do you think he'll come on such short notice?" Stan asked. "He'd better if he knows what's good for him. He'd be living in a cardboard box if we didn't use him," George replied in a condescending tone. "But what about the ski patrol? They've been watching us close." "Quit worrying," George said with disdain. "You are such a pansy. I'll take care of it." "Bite me," Stan said, shoving his brother. "You know I'm in. I was just asking." George, laughing at his brother's red face, said, "Just trust me. I know how to handle the ski patrol." As he looked out the window at the mountain, he said with satisfaction, "This is going to be just what we are looking for." "All right, I guess worst case we get caught and have to pay some fines," Stan said. "What fines?" Ray asked from the couch. "We've got a plan," Stan replied. "We're going to get Harvey to come up here and drop us off on the top of the prohibited mountain in his helicopter. There's sure to be some intense boarding up there." "All right, finally some fun," Ray yelled as the other 2 guys looked around and asked what was going on. "When do we leave?" Ray asked as he vaulted the back of the couch and ran over to the window to get a good look at the mountain. "I'm calling Harvey right now," George said as he punched in some numbers on his phone. "We're all set," George said a couple of minutes later. 2 days from now we're going to meet Harvey at a little airport that's about 3 hours from here. He'll fly us in from there." "Cool," Stan said excitedly. "I'll tell the guys," as he rushed over to the couch where his friends had resumed playing video games. "Now I just have to take care of the ski patrol," George muttered to himself. He spent the next 2 days strategically looking for someone on the ski patrol that could be bought. With the Vanderhaven name and the money and resources that came with it, the spoiled young man had realized long ago that there was almost no limit to the amount of trouble that he could buy himself out of. It didn't take him long to find a young man who seemed very eager to make a little extra money for Christmas. The young man agreed that when the Vanderhaven brothers and his friends were ready to come off the mountain, he would provide a distraction to give them a window of opportunity to help them get clear unnoticed. It would cost them $1,200, half now and half when they were safely back, but it was pocket change to the brothers. The morning of their adventure dawned bright and very cold. It had snowed all night, and the deep, newly fallen snow covering everything made the group of young men even more excited about the adventure ahead. As they headed down the mountain on the large tram, they noticed 2 snowmobiles underneath them on the nearly deserted mountain. The snowmobiles made deep tracks in the newly fallen snow as they headed towards the trails located near the mountain, where the guys would be snowboarding later. "We should do that tomorrow," Vince said, pointing towards the 2 vehicles. "I bet that's fun." Whatever, Stan said. Today's going to be awesome. Yeah, the other guys echoed as the snowmobiles underneath them disappeared into the woods on the adjoining mountain. A few hours later, they pulled into the small airport. There's Harvey right there, Stan said excitedly, pointing at the short, balding man wrapped in a huge coat that was standing in front of a helicopter. He doesn't look very happy. Who cares? George said with a laugh. As long as he flies. The group of guys laughed and picked at each other as they unloaded their gear from the SUV they had rented and then quickly walked towards the helicopter. Hey, Harvey, we all set? George asked as they walked up. Harvey nervously said, No, man. Sorry, we're not going to be able to go up today. What? George yelled. Are you kidding me? What's the problem? Look, Harvey said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. The snow is too hard and the wind is up on top of the mountain. It's just too dangerous. Bull, George yelled as he poked his finger in the other man's chest and brought his face inches from Harvey's own. You do this every time. It's always some last-minute problem. Cut the crap and tell me how much more money you want this time. It's not about the money, Harvey said with a slight whine sounding in his voice. It's just too dangerous. You just don't fly into the mountains with high winds and driving snow. He looked around despairingly at the group of young men looking for understanding. Then why didn't you just call and tell us instead of wasting our time? Stan said furiously. George, now pacing angrily, exploded. Because it's about the money. It always is. Look, Harvey, he said as he turned and looked testily at the older man. We spend a lot of money with you. You are a decent guy, but I'm sick of all the games. Either you take us up or I'll find someone else to do it. I don't think it'll be too hard to find someone to replace you. Harvey looked at George in alarm. Whoa, let's not be crazy here. I've been flying you guys for years. You know other pilots won't take you to the places I will, or do what I can do. George turned and started walking off. Yeah, well, we'll just see about that. Come on, guys, let's take our money elsewhere. Harvey rushed after him and grabbed him on the shoulder, which George immediately shook off angrily. Wait, he said, anxiety evident in his voice. I'll do it. Just give me a few minutes to get everything ready. I knew we could count on you to make the right choice, Harv, George said, with a tiny grin directed at his brother. Harvey sighed in relief. I just need to take a couple of precautions so we can make it there in one piece, he said as he walked towards the helicopter. All right, Stan said with a large grin on his face. We'll start loading our gear. Come on, guys. The guys gave a whoop of excitement and gave each other high fives as they all rushed towards the chopper to load their gear. It took another 20 minutes for Harvey to complete his pre-flight preparations and make sure everything was ready to go. As the engine of the helicopter roared to life, the guys all yelled excitedly and toasted each other with small bottles of booze they had taken from the penthouse's minibar. The 30 minutes it took to get to the top of the mountain seemed like forever to Harvey. His passengers spent the whole trip talking trash and betting each other on who was going to pull off the most insane trick. As Harvey got closer and closer to the summit of the mountain, he was elated to see that it was completely covered in clouds. All he could think of as he was flying there was being spotted by the ski patrol or rangers. He knew he would be grounded if he was caught, but he really needed the jobs that the Vanderhaven boys provided, and the money was really good. As they approached the mountain from the opposite side of the resort, in an attempt to avoid detection, the high wind shook the helicopter from side to side. You guys sure you want to do this? Harvey yelled back at the guys over the noise of the wind and the rattling of the helicopter. George looked up at him and yelled, Hell yeah, we're doing this. Let's go. Harvey shook his head in resignation and said, As soon as we clear the summit, it'll be time to jump. All right, I'm first, Stan said, pushing his way towards the open side of the chopper. Stand aside, ladies. Let me show you how it's done. The helicopter cleared the summit and gave the group of guys a barely discernible view of the front side of the mountain that they would be snowboarding down. Stan, with a yell of excitement, jumped out of the shaking helicopter and took the 10-foot drop down to the mountain easily. The other 4 guys followed, and the helicopter noise quickly faded as they took off down the side of the mountain. The snow was still falling hard as they began their descent, but no one cared. The mountain terrain was exactly what they had hoped for. Fallen trees, steep slopes, and sheer ledges challenged them around every corner. But most importantly, there were no rules. They soared down the mountainside, forging trails, each attempting to outdo the others. Stan, still in front, came to a stop a little ways away from a sheer 2-story drop that ended at a 55-degree angle on the mountainside further below. The other guys pulled him beside him, and they all looked at the huge drop. "Whoa, that is steep," Ray said. "What, you scared?" Stan taunted. Tyler laughed, saying, "It's really not that far. The steepness of the slope makes it look further than it really is." "I'll go first," Stan said. "No way, not this time," George said, grabbing his arm. "You got to jump off the chopper first. This one is mine." Stan yanked his arm free and said, "You gotta catch me first, wuss," as he launched himself down the slope. George took off after him, laughing as he pursued him towards the drop. He caught up with his brother at the ledge, and they simultaneously launched themselves over it, their excited yells echoing across the mountain. The others followed one after another until they were all grouped together underneath the ledge. "That was sweet," Ray said. "Yeah," the other guy said, comparing the feeling of flying they had felt. "Hey guys," Tyler said suddenly, sounding worried. "What's up with the snow?" The snow underneath their boards had started to slide down the mountainside by itself. As they watched it slide downward more and more rapidly, the ground underneath them gave a low crack. As the group of guys looked at each other in horror, the whole hillside of snow began sliding down the mountain, pulling the group along with it. "Come on, guys," George yelled frantically. "We need to try and stay in front of it." "We can't! George, help!" Stan yelled in terror as the snow picked up more and more speed. The wave of snow roared down the mountainside, pulling the screaming young men under the wall of snow one at a time, as it continued on its way towards a massive cliff ahead.